So good morning. We're going to get started right away here. I'm just going to introduce our speakers quickly. So today I am joined by the Honourable Minister Stephen Guilbeault, Minister of the Environment and Climate Change, as well as the Minister responsible for Parks Canada. Spelling of the Minister's name: first name S-T-E-V-E-N, last name G-U-I-L-B-E-A-U-L-T. I'm also joined by Mr. Ron Hallman, President and CEO for the Parks Canada Agency. Spelling of the name: first name R-O-N, last name H-A-L-L-M-A-N. And thirdly, we are also joined by Mr. Landon Shepard, Incident Commander for Parks Canada, who will take part in the media Q&A session. Spelling of Mr. Shepard's name: first name L-A-N-D-O-N, last name S-H-E-P-H-E-R-D. And I will just repeat this in French. Je suis accompagnée aujourd'hui par l'honorable Stephen Guilbeault, ministre de l'Environnement et Changement climatique et ministre responsable de Parcs Canada. On appelle son nom, son premier nom, c'est S-T-E-V-E-N, dernier nom G-U-I-L-B-E-A-U-L-T. Aussi avec nous aujourd'hui, M. Ron Hallman, président et directeur général de l'Agence Parcs Canada. Premier nom R-O-N, dernier nom H-A-L-L-M-A-N. Et finalement, avec nous aujourd'hui, M. Landon Shepard, commandant des interventions pour Parcs Canada, qui participera au foire des questions et réponses avec nous aujourd'hui. Son nom, premier nom, c'est L-A-N-D-O-N, dernier nom S-H-E-P-H-E-R-D. So we will begin with official remarks today by the Honourable Minister Guilbeault. Minister, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Nathalie. Merci beaucoup. Bonjour tout le monde. I want to begin by recognizing the incredible work done by the dedicated staff from all levels of government to manage this really difficult situation. Throughout, I've been in close contact with Parks Canada, my counterparts in the province of Alberta, as well as British Columbia. Been in close contact with Mayor Ireland and other federal ministers, most notably Minister Arjit Sajjan. The individual stories of bravery and hardship are something Canadians will always remember. This was the single largest fire in Jasper National Park history. What many may not know is that Parks Canada staff housing was located in the southwest end of town. That means that many Parks Canada staff who've been managing this situation have been doing so knowing their homes were lost in the blaze. Similarly, Mayor Ireland hasn't flinched from his leadership, his hard work, despite having lost his home. We cannot thank them enough for stepping up to your emergency duties when facing such personal challenges. You all exemplify the extraordinary degree of professionalism and service, which makes Parks Canada the organization that it is. Je suis très touché par tous ces exemples de courage et de persévérance ici, malgré ces temps très difficiles. Les employés de Parcs Canada ont travaillé d'arrache-pied, alors même qu'ils savaient que leur maison était détruite par les flammes. Aujourd'hui, nous saluons leur professionnalisme et leurs efforts sans relâche pour nous protéger des feux de forêt. Despite such hardship, it is worth celebrating that we have not reported any injuries or casualties. Around 358 structures, or roughly 30% of the town, was lost to the fire. But inversely, around 70% of the town was saved. Years of preparation, forest management, simulated evacuations, and firefighting efforts paid off. The number one focus is the community. I'm happy to report that all the fires within the community have been put out. Crews are now bringing power back on and looking to prepare the community for a staged re-entry, although there are no firm timelines for when that occur. Crews are also doing a great job extending the buffer zone around the community to about 3 kilometers. Beyond that, there are still active wildfires, which threaten the community. Teams underground are working very hard to stabilize the wildfire situation throughout Jasper National Park over the coming 3 days before weather forecasts predict heightened fire risks. And while rail service has slowly resumed, Transport Canada reported that the rail backlog will take an estimated 15 to 20 days before operations fully return to pre-fire levels nationwide. Everyone right now is thinking about Jasperites who have been impacted. On Friday, the federal government announced we would match any donation made to the Red Cross along with the province. That means your donation is worth triple the value. We encourage Canadians to send support. The Jasperites and all those impacted, my main message today is that our government is fully behind you and will be for as long as it takes for your town to recover. Nous allons continuer de déployer toutes les ressources à notre disposition pour contenir cet incendie. Nous sommes en discussion avec le gouvernement de l'Alberta pour offrir tout le soutien nécessaire sous toutes ses formes aux personnes touchées et démarrer les efforts de reconstruction sans délai. And once we get past fighting this fire, we're eager to figure out how we can start rebuilding the community and supporting those who have been impacted. We're speaking closely to the province as well as the town about coordinating financial supports. As many underground will tell you, the cooperation between all levels of government has been incredible. The rapid evacuation was a testament of that cooperation. As Mayor Ireland has pointed out, the problem was not for lack of coordination or resources, but because they were facing a raging inferno that defied conventional firefighting tools. The province of Alberta was already part of the firefighting response with Parks Canada and the municipality of Jasper, as well as other agencies. No requests for assistance went unmet. And we will fully support the province's request for assistance for this fire and the many, many others still ongoing across the province. Moving forward, Parks Canada's officials will also be embedded within Alberta's emergency management operations. Jasper est un parc national emblématique, et ce pour de bonnes raisons. Niché au cœur d'un paysage montagneux spectaculaire, il s'agit d'un endroit vraiment spécial pour des millions de Canadiens et Canadiennes et des personnes de partout dans le monde. Les visiteurs ont souligné la beauté spectaculaire de ce parc. Jasper National Park and the community of Jasper hold a special place in all our hearts. We must work together to get that back as soon as possible, restore the community of Jasper and the lives and businesses impacted by this terrible event. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you, Minister. Merci, le ministre. I now invite Mr. Ron Hallman, President and CEO for Parks Canada. J'invite maintenant Monsieur Ron Hallman, Président et Directeur général de l'Agence Parcs Canada, à prendre la parole. The floor is yours.
Thank you. And can you hear me okay right now?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, Natalie, and thank you, Minister. I'm here today as President and CEO of Parks Canada, and also as a proud Albertan, raised and educated in Calgary. I want to join all Jasperites, Albertans, Canadians, and people from around the world who are grieving the devastation in the town of Jasper and throughout Jasper National Park. I am exceptionally proud of Parks Canada team members from Jasper National Park and from across our organization, as well as our amazing partners who I will speak about in a moment for their tireless work on this devastating fire. I'm grateful that everyone affected is safe. I'm grateful that 70% of the town has been saved, and I know that we have much more critical work to do together. This evening will mark 1 week since the fire started, and so much has happened since then. You've just heard the latest from Minister Guilbeault on the situation on the ground as of today. I'd like to make a few additional points that speak to the situation and respond to some of the questions that I know are out there so that we can all continue to focus on the job at hand. First, the residents and business operators of Jasper are facing extremely difficult circumstances at this time, and they deserve to know that we are focused solely on one priority and one priority only: the safety and long-term well-being of the residents of Jasper, both in the short term and as planning turns to re-entry and rebuilding. That is our mission at this time. I can tell you that Parks Canada is engaged with Mayor Ireland and the town of Jasper, with Parks Canada staff across the country, with provincial officials, and with federal officials from across the entire government of Canada in this response. I want to express sincere appreciation for the collaborative, all-hands-on-deck approach that has been put in place, and I want to assure the residents of Jasper, including many who are Parks Canada employees, that we will be doing everything possible to support you today, tomorrow, and as long as it takes. Second, Parks Canada, the town of Jasper, and Indigenous partners have worked together for years to reduce known wildfire risks in Jasper National Park and around the town. To address known threats from mountain pine beetle and other factors, Parks Canada has regularly performed prescribed fires and mechanical removal of hazardous trees and underbrush in the parks we manage for many years, including in Jasper National Park, with hundreds of millions of dollars in funding invested in this initiative from successive governments for multiple decades. Here in Jasper National Park, we've conducted prescribed fires as far back as 1996, with subsequent ones to maintain the fire guard. We began the work to fire smart the town of Jasper in 2003, making it one of the first fire smart communities in Canada, and one of the most prepared to face what has come to us in the past week. We have sprinkler systems installed in key areas. We've been conducting joint interagency simulation exercises with the town of Jasper for a variety of emergency scenarios for at least the past 7 years. And so I want to say the fact is that Parks Canada and our partners have done everything we reasonably could have done to reduce fire risk over many years and to be prepared for what may come. I have sincerely no doubt that those efforts over many years, led by successive Jasper superintendents and their teams, including the current field unit superintendent and his team, through their work over the years with the town, have significantly mitigated what may otherwise have been an even more devastating fire. And in doing so, they have saved lives this past week. Third, it has been and continues to be the professional view of our incident commanders and other experts on the ground that Parks Canada had all the resources we needed to fight the fire, as Minister Guilbeault has already said. All requests for assistance to the Canadian Interagency Firefighting Centre and other jurisdictions were granted, including on-the-ground firefighting resources, heavy equipment, and aerial firefighting support. All resources were gratefully accepted and put to use where deemed feasible by incident commanders on the ground. Obviously, we are all devastated that the fire breached the town despite best efforts, and I'll leave it to the fire experts to speak to the unimaginable hell-on-earth conditions that our firefighters are battling. The simple fact is that sometimes there are no tools or resources capable of overcoming a wildfire of the magnitude that we faced this week. And as the mayor said so eloquently the other day, we stand humbled in the presence of nature. So I want to express on behalf of the Parks Canada team our profound gratitude for the engagement and close collaboration with other federal colleagues, Alberta provincial officials, wildland firefighters from other provinces and territories, and structural firefighters from the town of Jasper and from other towns in Alberta and British Columbia who have stepped up and sent capacity. Their work has been heroic, and they deserve our deepest gratitude even as their critical work continues. I also want to underscore for the record the collaborative efforts of the municipality of Jasper and Jasper National Park employees, with tremendous help from the RCMP, that resulted in the safe evacuation of more than 20,000 people from the town of Jasper, a town of about 5,000 residents max normally, all evacuated from the park within a 5-hour period. The Alberta Emergency Management Agency and Alberta Wildlife have also provided and continue to provide excellent support and are embedded with all aspects of the fire response with our gratitude. Again, I have no doubt that the collective decisive actions of all of these staff at a critical turning point on Wednesday saved lives this week. Fourth, we know fires have all been extinguished in the town and that efforts continue to get the wildfire under control outside the town, We know too that even as the situation on the ground continues to stabilize, the work is far from done. Parks Canada will continue to stand with the mayor and the town in working with provincial and federal colleagues and members of the Canadian Armed Forces to confirm the integrity of critical infrastructure, make the areas safe, and work towards the re-entry of residents to their community just as soon as possible. I can tell you as well that Parks Canada will be doing absolutely everything we can to support recovery, including streamlining local development review processes to support temporary housing and long-term rebuilding work that will come, both for residents and for business operators and their employees whose livelihoods have been affected. And finally, a note to Mayor Ireland, who I first met almost 25 years ago, and who has been an exemplary partner at this most difficult time, and to all the residents and business operators of Jasper. Know this, Parks Canada and the town of Jasper have been friends, colleagues, counterparts, and neighbors for many years, and this tragic incident only strengthens our resolve to stand with you today and always. Your community is truly our community. Thank you. That concludes my statement.
Thank you, Ron. We will move along to the Q&A session now. Just give me one moment. So before we open the floor to questions, I just want to let all of the media who are on the line with us today know how we will manage this session. There are nearly 100 people on this call right now, so while we won't be able to get to every single question, we will do our best. For media who are joining us online and on the Microsoft Teams app, please use the hand raising function if you have a question. For media who are joining us by phone, please use the *5 to raise your hand. We ask that you keep it to one question at this time, as like I said, we do have many media who are on the line. Before you ask your question, you must state your name and your media outlet. The Q&A session today is reserved for members of the media. And finally, we just ask that you wait to be called upon before unmuting yourself and asking your question. I will repeat this information in French before we open the floor to questions. Avant de passer aux questions, j'ai quelques annonces d'ordre administratif. Donc, pour les médias qui se joignent à nous en ligne, veuillez utiliser la fonction « Lever la main » si vous avez une question. Pour les médias qui se joignent à nous par téléphone, veuillez utiliser *5 pour lever la main. Nous vous demandons de vous tenir à une question pour aujourd'hui et avant de poser votre question, vous devez déclarer votre nom et votre bureau de presse avant de débuter. Lorsque vous avez une question, veuillez attendre que je vous nomme. Donc, nous allons maintenant prendre les questions des représentants des médias. And just a reminder that we do have our 3 spokespersons with us here today. We have the Honorable Minister Guilbeault. We have Mr. Ron Hallman, President and CEO for the Parks Canada Agency, and we are also joined by Landon Shepard, Incident Commander for Parks Canada. So with that, we will begin. bear with me. First question, I call upon Mackenzie Gray from Global News. Mackenzie, can you just confirm your name and news outlet that I got that correctly?
You did, yeah. Mackenzie Gray here from Global News. We've spoken with many people in Jasper and with some experts as well too, who've said that the pine beetle infestation within Jasper played a role within the wildfires. To the Parks Canada folks, can you outline the impact that you think the beetle infestation had and what measures, if any, were taken in advance of the wildfires to deal with that? And for Minister Guilbeault, the Conservatives have asked about this a number of times in question period. Do you think there was sufficient work done to make sure that the pine beetle infestation did not cause or make a fire worse within the national park?
Ron, do you want to go first and I'll complete after?
Certainly. Thank you. Let me just say to the question, certainly pine beetle is a factor. It has been a factor in many areas, and that is why since 1996 we have been doing prescribed burns in Jasper. We've been doing prescribed burns across the country in different places. We've had hundreds of millions of dollars invested to do that important work. And let me just say what the fire smarting means in Jasper in the preparation, because the pine beetle is through hundreds of thousands of hectares of forest, and short of bulldozing all of that or burning all of it or mechanically removing all of it, we work to minimize risk to towns, to other assets of Parks Canada within the park. In Jasper, what does that look like? Well, within the most critical zone within the town, we worked with officials there and residents in the critical zone, which is up to 10 meters around each building, to remove brush to make sure there's not vegetation that's unhelpful. And as you get further away from there, you move out towards the trees. So within about 100 meters from the town boundary, we remove vegetation through mechanical means, underbrush, etc. We work to thin the trees so that the fire, if it does come, will have to work harder and it can't just become a big wall or a crown fire. But all of those things are simply tools to help us face a fire that may come. They don't prevent a potential fire. How could it? They give us tools to address the fire if and when it comes, to slow the fire down, and to give our professionals on the ground the opportunity to get the equipment in there, to get the aerial support, and fight the fire before it can breach the town. What happened on Wednesday with the heavy winds, the dry temperature, and the fact, for anyone who's been to Jasper, you know there's a valley. That fire grew in a very short amount of time, traveling about, I'm going to get the numbers wrong, Landon can pitch in later, 15 feet a minute or something crazy. Fire was 300 meters high, 100 meters above the trees, projecting burning pine cones and debris caught up in its own little weather system, projecting that debris and burning pine cones up to 1 kilometer ahead of the fire. So not only was the fire moving with the wind, but the air in front of that fire was being preheated by that flying debris, making the fire go even faster. There is nothing any human on Earth or any piece of equipment could have done standing in front of that wall of fire that would have allowed them to stop it. It's just not possible. Thank you.
I mean, I think Ron answered the question very eloquently. If I may add just a few elements, Parks Canada has been taking care of Jasper National Park now for almost a century. The park was officially became an official national park in 1930. We have, as both Ron and I have mentioned, we have Parks Canada staff who live there, who call Jasper their home. Quite a number of them. And to think that over all those decades, we would not have deployed all of the resources necessary to try and do everything that is humanly possible to protect a town from a forest fire is simply not true. Ron talked about prescribed burns, clearing dead trees, clearing a wide buffer zone around the town of Jasper. But as we are seeing in Canada and all around the world, we are seeing more and more aggressive forest fires, and we certainly saw that in the summer of 2023. And this is what we were faced with. And the fact that we were able to protect 70% of the town speaks to all of those measures we have put in place over the years and, frankly, decades. Ron talked about Fire Smart. Fire Smart is now a national program for which Jasper was one of the inspiration. What we do around the country to protect town and cities from forest fires was inspired largely by what we've been doing in Jasper for all these years.
Yeah, and if I could just add a bit of a final comment on my notes, look, I want to acknowledge people are devastated, they're hurt, they want answers, and we all do. But what I would just urge is if we can look at the facts of what has been done, and there will be time to look at what can or should potentially be done differently later as we learn from this. But I would just leave you, don't take it from me, take it from the mayor, his comments about the work that we have done hand in glove together for many years to try to avoid this horrible day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for those responses. So for the next question, we will go to Corey Seegers. Corey, can you unmute yourself and just confirm your name and media outlet?
Hi, thank you so much. Yes, this is Corey Seegers with CBC. I'm curious, with the forecast that's coming up this week and the concerns about August 1st, are we looking at the reason that people can't come back to Jasper anytime soon? Is it more about the fire danger than it is getting the infrastructure up and running at this point?
Landon, maybe you can take that one. Just unmute and the floor is yours.
Hello there, Landon Shepard, Incident Commander on the fire. I would say we've got both elements are of concern. So conditions are not safe within the community to allow access in terms of incident stabilization, in terms of all the work being done to deal with damage within the community. But the wildfire threat is certainly still real, and even while I'm very encouraged by the incredible speed and efforts that are underway right now to control the wildfire, we're not going to be in a position to call that threat not. It will still be significant in 3 days' time when we start to see increased fire behavior.
Thank you, Landon. Next question, we will go to Shal Delis, I believe. Shal, please confirm your name and media outlet. The floor is yours.
Yes, Charles Delisle, Radio-Canada, Alberta. My question, if I could get an answer in French as well, that would be great. Will you guys be, cutting more around the community to, maybe perhaps stop this from happening again?
Je peux répondre à cette question-là. C'est certain que, comme Ron et moi l'avons dit plus tôt en anglais, mais la ville de Jasper est probablement l'une des villes les mieux équipées au pays pour faire face aux feux de forêt. Nous avons mis en place dans la ville de Jasper et autour de la ville de Jasper des mesures préventives face aux feux de forêt depuis la fin des années 90. Et c'est d'ailleurs la ville de Jasper qui a été l'une des inspirations pour le programme national Intelli-Feu, qui est un programme maintenant qui vise à appuyer les municipalités partout à travers le pays pour les aider à mettre en place des mesures qui vont réduire les risques que des feux de forêt s'attaquent à ces municipalités-là. Alors, que ce soit de l'éclaircissement, que ce soit des feux anticipés, que ce soit la création de barrières naturelles pour tenter de stopper les flammes, de se rendre jusqu'à la ville. Toutes ces mesures-là ont été mises en place, incluant la récolte de bois qui est affectée par la tordeuse du bourgeon, de l'épinette, pardon. Et c'est certain qu'on devra réévaluer une fois que les feux de forêt seront sous contrôle. Est-ce que face à des feux de forêt aussi violents, ce sont les feux de forêt les plus violents qu'on a vus de l'histoire de la région, est-ce qu'on ne devrait pas mettre en place d'autres mesures? Est-ce qu'il ne faudrait pas élargir la zone tampon, par exemple? Alors, c'est certain que ce sont des questions que les experts de Parc Canada ainsi que d'autres experts de la lutte aux incendies de forêt vont devoir se poser et nous serons là, le gouvernement fédéral, pour répondre. Et c'est d'ailleurs pourquoi nous travaillons à la mise en place du premier plan d'action national pour l'adaptation au changement climatique, parce qu'aujourd'hui, on parle de feux de forêt, mais demain, après-demain, on pourrait parler d'inondations, de vagues de chaleur, de tempêtes tropicales. On voit que ces événements-là, il y en a de plus en plus au Canada comme ailleurs dans le monde. Alors, nous travaillons avec les provinces, les territoires, les municipalités, les peuples autochtones pour aider à mieux préparer la population canadienne à faire face aux impacts des changements climatiques.
Merci beaucoup pour la réponse. I will go to the next question. Chris Varco. Chris, if you could unmute yourself, confirm your name and media outlet, please.
Hi, it's Chris Varco with the Calgary Herald. This is a two-part question. The first one is for Mr. Hallman. You'd mentioned about streamlining and expediting the processes for businesses and residents looking to rebuild. Can you explain exactly how that will happen and how quickly you will get those rules out? And for Minister Guilbeault, what financial resources and commitments is the federal government looking to help those who want to rebuild? What commitments can you give to Jasperites who want to rebuild?
So to the first part about the question, thank you very much. We will be sitting with the mayor and town officials to see what supports and administrative supports, et cetera, they need to be able to do the work they want to do to rebuild the community, to have temporary housing, et cetera, for all residents, including Parks Canada employees who've lost their homes. So I don't have those specific details right now. I think we will be working with the town very closely. There are lots of development rules in place already. What we need to do is make sure that we're using all of the tools we have to help get any rebuilding and temporary structures in place just as soon as humanly possible so people can get back to the community.
Thank you, Ron. I would echo what Ron just said. I have spoken myself with Mayor Ireland about this 2 days ago, I believe. And the federal government has a number of programs to facilitate and to help with the reconstruction of damaged properties, cities that have been affected by different type of natural catastrophes. We will be putting all of these programs at the disposal of the people and businesses of Jasper to help with the rebuild, which unfortunately we're starting to look into. But as I said in my remarks earlier, we are looking at a stage reentry. It's going to take a bit of time, and especially in light of weather conditions in the coming days, we want to be very careful because safety of the people of Jasper is our main concern right now. But we will be there, obviously, to help them rebuild.
Thank you very much. Next question, we will go to David Staples. David, you can unmute yourself and confirm your media outlet, please.
Hi, David Staples here. Thanks for taking my call. One of the narratives that we're hearing...
Sorry, David, just which media outlet are you with?
The Edmonton Journal.
Thank you.
one of the narratives that we're hearing is that Parks Canada kind of has a nature first philosophy, a green philosophy, where they put the parks and nature ahead of people, and they haven't done enough to get rid of the pine beetle problem. So I'm curious what you think of that. And I'm curious, in the last, let's say, how many hectares do you have of these diseased trees in total in Jasper Park? How many have been taken out in prescribed burns in the last 5 years, in the last year? And how many are you estimating that the wildfire has taken out?
Thank you for your questions. Sorry, Ron, we'll let you start, but also just acknowledging we may not have that specific detail yet as we continue to work on the fire perimeter itself and determining what that looks like.
Yeah, thanks for the question. And Landon may have information about hectares burned so far. I don't know, I'll turn to him in a moment, but what I can tell you is I reject the premise of the question that Parks Canada puts nature before people. It's a ridiculous statement, and one that is offensive, frankly. There is nothing more important to the entire Parks Canada team than the safety of our employees, our guests, the people we work with. And anyone who says anything differently doesn't know very much about us. I'll stop there on that point. As for what have we done, I think it's a very fair question about the pine beetle and what have we done and what are we doing, because pine beetle devastation has been enormous in the forest where it's where it has been present, particularly in British Columbia and Alberta. We've been doing prescribed burn for years. In fact, Parks Canada was putting fire back on the land to restore ecological integrity, to minimize the risk of terrible wildfire from pine beetle years ago. And anyone that paid attention to it back in the 90s will remember, frankly, when we were being mocked roundly for wanting to use prescribed burn to remove dead pine beetle. So I'm well aware that there's a debate out there, and I'll leave that to those who are interested in having that. But what I can tell you is that over the last 10 years for Jasper, we've had 15 prescribed burns. We've burned thousands of hectares within the park, tens of millions of hectares across Canada for different prescribed burns for pine beetle, but also for other reasons. But I just really do want to leave you sincerely with the fact that we take safety of everyone very seriously, and we do everything we can reasonably do to remove underbrush, to do prescribed burns, and to do anything we can to reduce risk to assets, to towns, to people, every opportunity we get. And I have to say, across successive governments, I have worked for 12 different ministers and 4 different prime ministers. And I can say, in all sincerity, in my work as a professional public servant for 30 years, this has never been politicized in the work that I do, and we have been given the funding we've needed, and we've had incredible support from British Columbia, from Alberta, and from many interagency departments in attacking anything we need to in terms of pine beetle and reducing risk. As far as how many have burned in this particular fire in the last 4.5 days, I'll turn to Landon for a quick answer if he has one.
Thanks, Ron. So I'll just say that mountain pine beetle in Jasper, like all over Alberta, where it had spread before it finally spread into the Jasper National Park extensively from about 2014 till about 2018. It's a big problem, and it's a big problem related to some of the challenges that also affect wildfire independent of changes of fuel. And we're all very aware of those changes, and this isn't meant to be a discussion about climate change, but anyone who's involved in fire management can tell you that things have become more difficult, especially in the last 5 years, to manage impacts. But as Ron was discussing, this isn't something that caught us blindsided. We started fire smart treatments near the community, recognizing that we wanted to have the community to be more easily defendable. It's something that weighs on me. Sometimes I have it in my dreams. I'm solving issues around trying to protect my community, protect my friends, protect my neighbors. It's not without all the help and some frankly giants before me who had the forethought to get programs started to help prepare Jasper, that we're not talking about a much more serious impact. But we removed fuels on the bench above the community. It's helping us right now in terms of reducing the risk of the wildfires that are remaining on the landscapes that could threaten the community. Those areas, we treated an area that covers over 500 hectares with harvesting to remove mountain pine beetle trees. We removed other areas to have better strategic control points in all sorts of directions, because we couldn't anticipate where the challenge would absolutely come from. In fact, with a fire coming from the south, I would have told you, a month ago that that's an area where we had some of the most work done to prepare for the potential challenges of a large and difficult to control wildfire, because we extensively removed mountain pine beetle fuels south of the community in the campgrounds on the valley bottom near lots of values at risk, some of the commercial accommodation areas, all of the affected areas in immediate risk of fire impingement have had those treatments in advance. So absolutely on our radar, and absolutely something that we made significant efforts to address. Ron mentioned earlier some of the spotting distances of that I personally observed of 500 meters and at times a kilometer. Those are very hard to adjust for on any landscape, and folks have to recognize that some of the conditions that we were dealing with made even the incredible preparations that, like I said, have been initiated since the early 2000s, difficult for those to be effective.
Thank you very much. We are getting a little tight on time, but we will take as many questions as we can in about the next 10 minutes or so. So next I call upon Mélanie Marquis. If you can confirm your name and your media outlet, votre nom et votre bureau de presse. Merci.
Oui, bonjour, c'est Mélanie Marquis, je suis avec la presse. Je vais poser ma question à Monsieur Guilbeault pour en revenir à cette bestiole dont j'apprends le nom aujourd'hui, là, en anglais c'est Beetle. Pouvez-vous expliquer dans quelle mesure, si j'ai bien compris, votre évaluation, c'est que cette affaire-là, donc l'infestation, n'a eu aucun impact sur la propagation du feu. Puis qu'est-ce que vous répondez à ceux qui disent que le gouvernement a été prévenu en 2017 et qu'il n'a rien fait pour tenter de juguler le problème puis d'essayer de prévenir des choses comme celles qu'on a vues au cours des derniers jours? Merci.
Merci. Tout à l'heure, je vous ai donné le nom français un peu commun, là, mais le nom technique est dans du pin, qui a affecté beaucoup les forêts dans l'ouest du pays. Il y a eu plusieurs vagues d'épidémies de cet insecte-là ravageur, qu'on connaît aussi là, dans l'est du pays également, mais les forêts dans l'ouest, particulièrement en Alberta et en Colombie-Britannique, ont été très affectées. Je pense qu'on vous a donné une série de mesures qui ont été mises en place bien avant 2017. Parc Canada travaille à mettre en place des mesures de prévention des incendies autour de la ville de Jasper depuis 1996-1997. Nous avons commencé en 2003 le programme IntelliFeu, qui, comme je le disais tout à l'heure, est un programme national maintenant. Et nous procédons depuis des années déjà nous allons déclencher des feux de forêt pour contrôler, pour éliminer ce qui pourrait servir de combustible à des feux de forêt naturels très puissants. On a récolté, mécaniquement du bois qui avait été affecté par cet insecte-là, justement pour éliminer encore une fois des sources de combustible pour des feux de forêt naturels. Alors, il y a beaucoup de mesures qui ont été mises en place, incluant la création d'une zone tampon autour de la ville pour tenter d'éviter que s'il y a un feu de forêt, la ville soit affectée. Je pense que comme Ron l'a dit, comme M. Landon l'a dit, on fait face à des feux de forêt maintenant, au cours des dernières années, qui sortent des normes. Alors, est-ce que ça voudra dire qu'à l'avenir, il faudra faire des zones tampons encore plus grandes autour de villes comme Jasper? C'est certainement une question qu'on va devoir se poser, mais vous avez entendu, vous avez vu comme moi là, les images, vous avez entendu les témoignages, un feu de forêt qui se déplaçait à une vitesse, ça de mémoire, mais je pense que c'était 15 mètres par minute, des flammes plus de 100 mètres au-dessus de la cime des arbres, des cocottes qui étaient projetées 1 kilomètre devant le feu, des cocottes enflammées qui étaient projetées 1 kilomètre devant le feu et qui causaient elles-mêmes, qui propageaient le feu avant même que ce feu n'arrive. Ce sont des conditions exceptionnelles. Nous sommes entrés dans l'ère des changements climatiques et nous vivons de plus en plus les impacts. L'été dernier, au niveau des feux de forêt, en a été un exemple et on doit mieux se préparer, mais on a investi au cours des dernières années plus de 65 millions de dollars chez Parc Canada dans la prévention, dans la mise en place de mesures pour prévenir l'impact des feux de forêt sur les installations de Parc Canada, sur des lieux comme que ce soit Banff, que ce soit Jasper, donc dans 65 millions de dollars seulement l'an passé qui ont été investis chez Parc Canada pour le programme national de gestion des feux de forêt. Alors, on a fait beaucoup de choses, mais on fait face à une situation exceptionnelle.
Merci beaucoup. We will move on to another question here. Stephanie Cram, I believe CBC Edmonton. Stephanie, if you could just confirm.
Yes, I'm Stephanie Cram from CBC Edmonton. I was wondering if there's an update on the damage to campsites south of town, because we received the map on the weekend, but we were just wondering if we have an update on the infrastructure damaged in the campsites.
Landon, do we have an update from that on campsites from the incident?
Yeah, I can speak to that. Just that we're trying to apply the same standard of confirmation of impacts to the assessment of infrastructure outside the town. It's on us to make sure that we get this information right. We're not wanting to leave any of the impacted properties without that same level of information that the town got, because we know that a bunch of those commercial accommodations south of town have those were residences for owners, operators, staff, and we're aware of that. So we're going to get that information right before we release it, but absolutely the plan is to conduct the same level of that initial rapid assessment, but confirmed assessment where we're definitely getting the locations and the damage assessed correctly. You know, the Parks Canada infrastructure where it's not residences is secondary priority for the folks and resources assigned to that. We will get that. We're hoping to have it released at the same time. We just do not want to delay either people who are affected in terms of their residences, and that's our priority. They're also Jasperites. So.
Thank you very much for that, Landon. I do just want to take a moment to acknowledge that we are very fortunate to have Mayor Richard Ireland join us here just a few minutes ago. So Mayor Ireland, I know you're here, I can't see you, but if you do want to say just a few words to the group, I will leave space on the floor right now for you to do so.
Thank you, Natalie. That's very much appreciated. And I apologize that I wasn't able to get here at the beginning. I just, though, did want to comment, if I may, with respect to the question that was put and began with an answer from Mr. Hallman that was so, I think, appropriately visceral for him. I know that those comments have been made. I know that some of them are propagated by citizens of Jasper, and I just want to join and reinforce his message for anyone who might see this as a failure. I reject that premise, as does Mr. Hallman. This is a success. If you make an analogy to a battle, we anticipated with Parks Canada that something like this could happen. And so we fortified our community. And I credit Parks Canada for the work that they did on the landscape to protect our town. And when the attack came, those defenses worked. We suffered casualties, absolutely, and it is so incredibly hurtful. But we did hold our ground. They saved, heroic people like Landon, saved 70% of our town. And they did that because of their work on the ground, and they did that because of the wisdom and foresight that they had to create those defenses for us. People ask, why wasn't the forest cleared? We have been a metric nation since I was a kid, but I don't know anybody who really understands what a hectare is. But I did watch an American newscast recently, and they described the fire in terms of square miles. 140 square miles of forest. Most of that is pine trees, not all of it. But there are fir and spruce, but they burn too. There's some poplar and deciduous. They will burn differently. But we're talking about a stretch of land, a valley that's kilometers wide and 30 kilometers long, and it is absolutely full of pine beetle dead trees. There is no conceivable way to remove all of them. So we had to prepare for the eventuality of fire, and the defenses were made, and the people did the work that they had to do. And even once the wildland firefighters had to evacuate because they didn't have breathing apparatus, our structural fire protectors, most of them volunteers, stayed behind and battled that fire until other structural teams from other communities across Alberta, 32 other communities, sent their structural fire protection people. And they arrived at 3 a.m. and were immediately immersed in that battle. And because of their skill and bravery, and because of the defenses that had been built, 70% of our town has been saved. That does not diminish in the least the horrifying experience that those on the ground felt and those residents who are going to return to a devastated community are going to feel. But I reject entirely any suggestion that there is a failure here. everyone got out of town. Every resident, every visitor got out safely, and most of our town was spared. I am happy to support Ron and Landon and Parks Canada in acknowledging that that could not have happened without the preparatory work that they had done on the landscape. I'm sorry to have taken your time. I know time is short, but I'm so happy to have had an opportunity to get in here, even though it's late.
Thank you so much, Mayor Ireland. We very much appreciate it and know that you're dealing with a lot. I just want to note that Minister Guilbeault had to depart. We thank him for being here today for answering questions. We will take one final question and I will turn it over to Bob Covey with the Jasper Local. Bob, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And thanks, Mayor Ireland, for jumping on. This question is actually, I suppose, for Ron Hallman, now that Mr. Guilbeault has had to leave. Thank you first for your encouraging words, pledging support for the community's short and long-term needs. I know my fellow residents will appreciate hearing those words. It is comforting. My question is, how will the provincial and federal governments share the cost of cleaning up the town in the immediate future? We know the municipality of Jasper won't have the financial capacity on its own. So how will the province and federal government come together to ensure the immediate needs in the town site are taken care of and those agencies aren't trying to download the costs on each other? Thank you very much.
Thank you for the question. What I can tell you is multiple Alberta departments and multiple federal departments are meeting almost daily to talk through the different processes, the different supports, what supports Alberta has, what supports multiple departments at the federal government level have, and then what are the ad hoc type supports that might be required that haven't already been contemplated within existing programs. Parks Canada and other departments have personnel embedded within the Provincial Emergency Coordination Committee. And we continued discussions at all levels, frankly, up to deputy ministers in both governments and at the political level. And I can tell you that there is no sense of offloading or this or that or finger pointing on that. We are all very much aligned and attuned to one priority and one priority only, and that is helping Mayor Ireland and the town and the residents rebuild their community. Details will be coming. There's the Disaster Financial Assistance Program that the town can apply through the province to Canada and all that. I am a little bit out of my depth on some of those programs that come from a whole host of different departments, federally and provincially, but I can assure you the necessary people are connecting on that, and the support will be coming. And in the immediate short term, Parks Canada is seized with working with the town to see what we can do, one, about getting people back into their town, and two, about temporary housing so that people have a place to live while they rebuild. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And thank you everyone for joining us today. We very much appreciate you being here. This concludes today's teleconference about the current wildfire situation in Jasper National Park. We encourage you to continue to following official channels like the Municipality of Jasper and Jasper National Park's Facebook page and website for detailed updates. Donc, je vous remercie d'être venu aujourd'hui. Nous apprécions vraiment votre présence. Et ceci conclut la téléconférence pour aujourd'hui concernant la situation des feux de forêt à Jasper. Veuillez continuer à suivre les mises à jour de la municipalité de Jasper ainsi que Parc Canada sur la page Facebook et site web du Parc national Jasper. Thank you very much. Have a great day. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you.